The first lock clicked 3 minutes before Madison Cole was supposed to walk down the aisle. She heard it through the old oak door of the bridal room. A small metal sound. Clean. Final. Outside. The storm pressed against the coastal mansion with both hands. Rain clawed the windows. The sea threw itself against the cliffs below. Every few seconds, lightning turned the room white and showed Madison her own reflection in the mirror. The gown fit perfectly. Of course it did. She had made it herself. On the dressing table lay a folder she had found hidden beneath a tray of white roses. Inside were transfer papers for the lighthouse property left by her grandfather. There were also documents authorizing a private care facility to take custody of her mother after the wedding. The signature at the bottom belonged to Julian Vale, her future husband, the man waiting beyond the locked door. Madison read the sentence again, though the words had already cut through every excuse she had made for him. Upon legal marriage, all rights associated with the Cole Coastal Estate would be transferred to Vale Maritime Holdings. Madison gathered the papers and crossed the room. She tried the handle. Locked. She knocked once. Open the door. No answer. She struck it harder. Open this door now. A male voice came from the corridor. Calm. Unfamiliar. The ceremony begins in 2 minutes. Miss Cole. Madison stepped back. Who are you? No answer came. She moved to the window. 3 floors below, guests sat beneath crystal lights in the glass chapel that overlooked the sea. White flowers lined the aisle. Cameras waited near the altar because Conrad Vale had invited half the city to witness the union between his family and the last surviving heir of the Cole estate. It had looked like a wedding when Madison arrived. Now it looked like a transfer of ownership. Another lock turned in the hall. Then the lights went out. The mansion fell silent. For one breath, only the storm existed. Then headlights appeared through the rain. 1 pair, then another, then 10 more. Black vehicles climbed the private road in a perfect line. They stopped around the mansion, blocking the gates, the service road, and the path to the helicopter lawn. Men in dark coats stepped into the rain. Madison pressed her palm to the glass. Downstairs, guests began to scream. A burst of shouting rose from the entrance hall. The chapel doors opened. Armed guards moved toward the aisle. Then every guard stopped. A man entered the chapel alone. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed in a black suit that seemed untouched by the rain. His dark hair was wet at the temples. A thin scar crossed one side of his jaw. He did not hurry. He did not look at the weapons pointed toward him. The guests moved away from the aisle as if fear itself had taken human form. Gabriel Leone. Conrad Vale stepped in front of the altar. You were not invited. Gabriel kept walking. Neither was the truth. He raised one hand. Between his fingers was a sealed document with a gold courthouse stamp. Julian appeared beside his father, his face pale with fury. This is a private ceremony. Gabriel looked at him for the first time. No, this is an attempted crime with flowers. Gabriel reached the center of the chapel and looked toward the balcony above, straight at Madison. The distance between them vanished. His expression did not change. But something in his eyes did. A hard control, most dawning, a pain quickly buried. A recognition so intense that Madison forgot to breathe. He knew where she was before he entered. He had known exactly where to look. Gabriel opened the document. Madison Cole cannot marry Julian Vale. Conrad laughed once. And why is that? Gabriel did not look away from Madison. Because she is already married to me. The chapel exploded into voices. Madison gripped the balcony rail. That is impossible. Gabriel heard her through the chaos. His gaze remained steady. You said the same thing the first time I asked you to trust me. Madison shook her head. I have never met you. For the first time. The calm in his face cracked. Only for a second. Then Julian shouted to the guards, "Remove him." No one moved. The front doors of the mansion opened behind Gabriel. Men loyal to Leone filled the entrance, silent and armed. Gabriel lifted the certificate. 18 months ago, Madison Cole married me in a civil ceremony witnessed by 2 people. The license was sealed under a protection order after an attempt on her life. The marriage remains legal. Any contract signed today is fraud. Madison stared at the gold seal. 18 months ago. The missing night. The accident. The hospital ceiling. Her mother crying. A doctor explaining that trauma had taken several weeks from her memory and might never return them. A sharp pressure formed behind her eyes. Julian pointed toward Gabriel. He forged it. Gabriel turned to Conrad. "Tell your son to lower his hand before he loses the privilege of having one." The room went still. Then Gabriel looked back at Madison. "The door behind you is locked. Move away from it." Madison did not understand until a heavy impact shook the hall. The lock broke. The door flew inward. One of the Leone men entered and stepped aside. Gabriel waited below. Madison held the papers from the dressing table against her chest. She should have feared him more than Julian. Every story said she should. But Julian had locked the doors. Gabriel had opened them. She descended the stairs while hundreds of eyes followed her. When she reached the chapel, Julian moved toward her. "Madison, listen to me." She stepped away from him. "Were you going to send my mother away?" His silence answered first. "It was temporary. She needs professional care. She has arthritis, not madness." Conrad spoke with practiced patience. "This is not the place for emotional scenes." Madison looked at the locked exits, the guards, and the contract hidden beneath her roses. "You made it the place." Lightning flashed across the glass walls. Gabriel removed his coat and placed it over her bare shoulders. His fingers did not touch her skin. He stood close enough for her to feel the heat of him. But he left a careful inch of space. Madison looked up. "Why do you have a marriage certificate with my name on it?" His voice lowered. "Because you put your name beside mine." "I do not remember that." "I know." The simplicity of the answer frightened her more than anger would have. A gunshot cracked from somewhere outside. Gabriel moved before the echo faded. One arm closed around Madison and turned her into his chest. Glass shattered above the chapel. His men raised weapons. Guests dropped behind chairs. A second shot struck the stone column where Madison had been standing. Gabriel covered her with his body. His voice remained calm against her hair. "We are leaving. I am not going anywhere with you." Another shot shattered a window. Gabriel looked down at her. "Then stay here and let the man who locked you inside explain why a sniper knows where to aim." Madison looked toward Julian. He was already hiding behind his father. Gabriel extended one hand. Rain and cold air rushed through the broken chapel. Madison stared at his palm. A stranger claimed to be her husband. Her wedding had become a battlefield. Her memory had become evidence against her. She placed her hand in his. Gabriel closed his fingers carefully, as if he had been waiting 18 months to do it again. Chapter 2. Madison watched the lighthouse appear through the rain from the back seat of the armored vehicle. Gabriel sat across from her. His coat remained around her shoulders. A line of water moved from his hair to his collar, but he seemed unaware of it. 2 vehicles traveled ahead. 3 followed behind. Madison held the transfer papers on her lap. "Where is my mother's safe?" "That is not a location. A house owned by my family outside the city. 2 doctors are with her. She knows you are alive." Alive. The word made Madison look toward the dark road behind them. "Was that sniper trying to kill me?" "Yes." "How can you say that so calmly?" "Because panic would not make the bullet less real." His eyes moved to the papers. "Where did you find those?" "Under the flowers in the bridal room. Conrad wanted you to discover them before the ceremony." "Why?" "To frighten you into compliance." He enjoys making people understand that resistance is useless. Madison tightened her hold on the folder. You seem to understand him well. I understand men who confuse ownership with power. The vehicle entered a gated tunnel beneath the lighthouse grounds. Steel doors closed behind them. Madison looked at Gabriel. And what do you confuse with power? His gaze settled on her face. Nothing. The answer should have sounded arrogant. Instead, it sounded like a warning given to himself. Inside the keeper house, warm lamps burned against dark wood walls. Madison knew the house, but the rooms had changed. The roof no longer leaked. The floors had been restored. The chair of her grandfather sat near the main window, repaired and covered in new leather. Madison touched the worn wooden arm. Who did this? Gabriel stood behind her. You did. She turned. No. You chose every detail. You argued with the architect for 3 weeks over the color of that wall. Madison looked at the deep green paint. It was exactly the shade she would have chosen. Her breath shortened. Gabriel nodded toward a door at the end of the hall. Your room is there. My room. It was yours before the accident. No one has entered since. Madison walked toward it slowly. The door opened onto a bedroom overlooking the sea. A pale blue dress hung behind the wardrobe glass. Books were stacked beside the bed. A silver thimble rested on the table. Her initials were engraved into it. M. C. Madison picked it up. Her grandfather had given it to her on her 16th birthday. She had believed it lost. A memory moved beneath the surface of her mind, a hand closing around hers. Candlelight. Gabriel saying something she could not hear. Pain struck behind her eyes. She dropped the thimble. Gabriel crossed the room, then stopped before touching her. Sit down. Do not order me. Then consider it a request made by a man who knows what happens when those memories return too quickly. Madison looked at him. You were there when I woke in the hospital. His silence changed the air. Were you? Yes. Why do I not remember you? You looked at me and screamed. The words came without accusation, but the pain beneath them was unmistakable. Madison gripped the edge of the table. Why? Because the last thing you remembered before the accident was a man breaking through the windshield. I was covered in blood that was not mine. Your mind placed my face where his should have been. Madison felt cold beneath the coat. And then, the doctor said pressure could damage your recovery. Your mother begged me to leave. I did. You abandoned your wife because my mother asked you. Gabriel stepped closer. His expression hardened. I did not abandon you. I removed myself from your sight. There is a difference. What difference? Every debt against your studio disappeared. Every man who followed you was removed. Every contract involving the lighthouse was blocked. Every night. Someone watched the road outside your apartment. Madison stared at him. You had me watched. Protected. Without my permission. With permission you gave me before your memory was taken. That permission was not permanent. No, it was not. For the first time, Gabriel looked uncertain. It made him more dangerous. Not less. Madison removed his coat and placed it over the chair. I want proof. You have the certificate? Paper proves a signature. It does not prove a choice. Something almost like approval moved through his eyes. Good. Do not look pleased. I am pleased. You said the same thing when the judge asked whether you understood the marriage contract. Madison turned toward the sewing box on the dresser. It was old cedar, carved with small roses. She recognized it from her studio. Why is that here? Gabriel did not answer immediately. Open it. Inside were needles, ivory thread, folded patterns, and a strip of blue ribbon. Nothing unusual. Then Madison noticed the velvet lining had been stitched by hand. Her stitches. She took the silver thimble and worked it beneath the edge. The lining lifted. A ring lay in the hidden space. Not a large diamond. Not a trophy. A simple band of dark gold with a tiny lighthouse engraved inside. Madison picked it up. The room disappeared. Rain on courthouse windows. Her own hand, shaking. Gabriel beside her in a black coat, a judge asking whether she entered the marriage willingly. Madison heard her own voice. Clear and certain. Yes. The memory vanished. She caught the dresser to remain standing. Gabriel was suddenly close. One hand hovered near her waist without touching. Madison looked at the ring. I said yes. You did. Why, his face closed again. That is the part you have to remember. No. That is the part you have to tell me. Gabriel looked toward the sea, because the truth will sound like manipulation until you remember the reason you came to me. I came to you at midnight, in the rain, carrying a ledger that could destroy Conrad Vale. Lightning flashed beyond the window. Gabriel looked back at her. And you told me that if I wanted the ledger, I would have to marry you first. Chapter 3. Madison did not sleep. The storm circled the lighthouse until dawn. Gabriel gave her the room and placed 2 guards outside the hall. He did not attempt to enter. He did not ask for the ring. At sunrise, she found him in the lantern room at the top of the tower. The great glass lens turned slowly behind him. Pale morning light moved across his face and disappeared into the fog beyond the windows. He stood beside a table covered with maps, shipping records, and photographs. Photographs of her. Madison stopped. In one. Madison sat beside the studio window with pins between her lips. Unaware that anyone was watching, she looked at Gabriel. How long? He did not pretend to misunderstand. 3 years. A chill moved over her skin. You watched me for 3 years. Your grandfather asked me to protect you. That explains guards. It does not explain this. She held up the photograph by the window. Gabriel looked at it. His jaw tightened. No? Then explain it. He closed the folder in front of him. At first, the photographs were reports. Conrad had begun buying debt connected to your family. Your grandfather suspected he wanted the lighthouse. He asked me to learn why. And later, I stopped needing reports. The honesty landed harder than a lie. Madison placed the photograph down. That is not romantic. I did not say it was. It is disturbing. Yes. His calm agreement took some of the anger from her and replaced it with unease. Why did you not speak to me because your grandfather wanted you outside my world? Because I agreed with him. Because men around me are used as targets. And because each time I decided to approach you, you did something kind for someone who could never repay you. And I understood that touching your life would stain it. Madison looked away. Do not make obsession sound noble. Madison pointed toward the shipping maps. What was in the ledger? A record kept by your grandfather. Dates, vessel names, payments, and private routes used by Vale Maritime. Conrad moved weapons and stolen art through humanitarian shipments. He bribed inspectors and killed 2 dock workers who tried to expose him. Madison swallowed. My grandfather knew. He discovered it when Vale vessels began using the cove below this lighthouse. The original coal deed gives the owner control of the access tunnel and the signal station. Without the property, Conrad cannot move his ships unseen. Why did my grandfather not go to the police? He did. The detective he trusted worked for Conrad. 3 days later, your grandfather fell down the lighthouse stairs. Madison stared at him. Everyone said his heart failed. His heart did fail. After someone placed a drug in his tea, did you kill the man who did it? Yes. The answer came without hesitation. Madison should have stepped away. Instead, she asked, did he confess? Yes. Was Conrad responsible? Yes. She closed her eyes. The sea struck the rocks below. Why marry me? Gabriel opened a drawer beneath the map table and removed a file. Your grandfather changed the deed before he died. The lighthouse could pass only to you. If you died without a legal spouse or child, the property would be sold through a trust. Conrad controlled 2 members of that trust, so marriage protected the property. Marriage to me did. Conrad could pressure judges, banks, and relatives. He could not pressure my name without beginning a war. Madison looked at the certificate copy inside the file. Did you propose this? No. You did. Another memory pressed at the edge of her mind. She stood in this lantern room, soaked from rain, arguing with Gabriel. You think I am afraid of you? You should be. I am afraid of men who smile while they steal. You do not smile. The fragment vanished. Madison touched the table. What happened after the wedding? We drove here. You hid the ledger before sunrise. On the coastal road, a truck blocked us. 4 men attacked the car, and the accident. The driver lost control. We went through the barrier. How did I survive? Gabriel looked toward the cliffs. The car stopped against a tree above the rocks. I pulled you out before it caught fire. Madison studied the scar along his jaw. You were hurt. Not enough. What does that mean? It means the man who ordered the attack escaped while I carried you up the hill. You regret saving me. Gabriel turned so fast that the question seemed to strike him. No. Then what do you regret? That saving you was a choice I had to make. There should never have been a distance between you and safety. The intensity in his eyes forced Madison to look away. Below the tower, a vehicle entered the courtyard. Gabriel glanced at the security screen. A silver car had stopped outside the gate. Julian Vale stepped out alone, holding both hands where the guards could see them. Madison moved toward the stairs. What are you doing? He came for me. Gabriel blocked the doorway without touching her. He came because his father sent him. You do not know that. I know men like Julian. They borrow courage when someone else owns the consequences. Madison lifted her chin. Move. Gabriel held her gaze. No. You said I chose you. Then respect the woman who made that choice. Silence stretched between them. Gabriel stepped aside, but he followed her down every stair. Julian waited in the courtyard beneath a gray sky. He looked exhausted. Rain darkened his expensive coat. No guard stood beside him. Madison stopped several feet away. Where is my mother? Julian looked toward Gabriel. I came to take you home. This is my home. The word surprised her. Gabriel did not react, but she felt his attention sharpen behind her. Julian lowered his voice. You do not understand what he is. He forged records. He has spent years watching you. He killed people connected to your grandfather. Some of that is true. Julian blinked. And you are still standing beside him. I am standing in front of him. Madison held up the transfer papers. Did you plan to take the lighthouse after the wedding? Julian looked ashamed for exactly 1 second. My father said it was the only way to settle your debt. Did you plan to send my mother away? She would have been cared for. By strangers. While you controlled her visits? Julian stepped closer. Madison, I was trying to give you a life. A real life. No more little sewing shop. No more women treating you like a servant. You could have had respect. Madison felt something inside her become very still. You think respect comes from standing beside you? I think people would finally see you. Gabriel spoke from behind her. They see her now. His face tightened. This is between us. No, Madison said. It never was. It was between your father and my property. Julian reached into his coat. Every guard raised a weapon. Gabriel moved in front of Madison. Julian froze and slowly removed a small envelope. Your mother wrote this. Gabriel took it first, checked it, then handed it to Madison. The writing belonged to Evelyn Cole. Madison opened the letter. My darling girl, I am safe. Gabriel has done everything he promised. There is something I should have told you long ago. I knew about the marriage. I asked him to stay away after the accident. I thought I was saving you from his world. I was wrong to hide your choice from you. Madison looked at Gabriel. You said my mother begged you to leave. She did? You did not say she knew we were married. I was waiting for her to tell you. Why? Because that betrayal belonged to her. Madison folded the letter with shaking fingers. And yours? His expression went cold. Mine is still coming. Chapter 4. Gabriel did not explain in the courtyard. He ordered Julian searched, placed in a guarded room, and brought Madison back into the keeper house as fog swallowed the ridge. Madison followed him into the map room. Close the door. Gabriel did. Now tell me. He stood across from her, still and unreadable. The man who attacked us on the coastal road was Julian. Madison felt the floor shift beneath her. No. He was driving the truck that blocked our car. He wore a mask. But you tore it away during the struggle. She remembered a flash of pale eyes behind broken glass. The eyes belonged to Julian. Why would he come here alone? Because he believes you still trust the version of him your mother helped create. Because Conrad trained him to mistake guilt for weakness. Because he placed a transmitter inside the envelope. Gabriel set a small black device on the table. Madison stared at it. You knew before you let him through the gate. Yes. You used me to confirm it. I allowed him to believe his plan had worked. That is the same thing. No. Using you would mean leaving you uninformed and unprotected. You left me uninformed. His jaw tightened. For 8 minutes. Madison laughed once. Without humor. You measure betrayal by the minute. I measure danger by the second. The lights flickered. A guard spoke through the hidden speaker. Movement below the western cliff. Multiple boats. Gabriel turned toward the security screens. Dark shapes crossed the water beneath the fog. Men climbed from the cove toward the tunnel entrance. Julian had not come to rescue her. He had come to open the door. Gabriel spoke into the radio. Lock the upper house. Seal the tunnel. Take Vale below and keep him alive. Gunfire sounded beneath the floor. Madison flinched. Gabriel opened a cabinet and removed a dark vest. Put this on. I am not hiding in a room while men attack my property. You are not hiding. You are surviving. This lighthouse has a second signal chamber behind the old lens shaft. My grandfather showed me. Gabriel looked at her sharply. Can you reach it without using the main stairs? Yes. Then show me. They moved through the library as glass shattered downstairs. Gabriel stayed one step ahead. Weapon lowered but ready. Madison pulled a carved wooden peg beneath the fireplace mantel. A narrow panel opened into darkness. The passage smelled of salt and old stone. They climbed a hidden stair inside the tower wall. Halfway up, an impact shook dust from the ceiling. Madison lost her footing. Gabriel caught her around the waist. For one suspended second, her back rested against his chest. His hands spread over the curve of her side. His breath touched her hair. Neither moved. Then he released her as if the contact had burned him. Keep climbing. Madison looked back. You are allowed to touch your wife when she is falling. His eyes darkened. That is not the kind of permission I am waiting for. The signal chamber was a circular room hidden beneath the lantern floor. Brass pipes ran through the walls. An emergency radio sat beside a rusted control wheel. Madison remembered her grandfather explaining that the old foghorn could be heard across every vessel in the bay. Gabriel checked the narrow window. 3 armed men appeared on the outer stairs. He pushed Madison behind the stone column. Stay down. The door burst inward. Noise and movement filled the small chamber. Gabriel forced the attackers back while Madison remained behind the stone column. When one man broke past him, she grabbed the heavy brass crank from the floor and struck his arm. His weapon fell. Gabriel ended the fight within seconds. Silence returned in pieces. Madison saw blood spreading along the sleeve of Gabriel. You are hurt. It is shallow. Sit down. Madison. Sit. Something in her voice made the feared Gabrielle Leone obey. She opened the emergency cabinet and found clean cloth. Her fingers trembled as she rolled his sleeve above the cut. He watched her face. You should be afraid of me. I am. That answer seemed to surprise him. Madison pressed the cloth against his arm. I am also angry with you. I do not know which feeling is stronger. Good. Why do you keep saying that? Because fear without anger becomes obedience? I do not want obedience from you. What do you want? His eyes lowered to her mouth, then returned to her eyes. Everything you gave me before. Freely. The foghorn sounded below them. A deep mechanical cry rolled across the sea. The Leone men had reached the controls. When the attack ended, they discovered that Julian had escaped through a maintenance shaft known only to the Cole family. Madison understood then. She had told him about it. Not recently. Before the accident, before she knew what he was, the betrayal was older than her missing memory. Chapter 5. Evelyn arrived at the lighthouse before sunset. Madison waited in the library with the ring on the table between her hands. Gabriel stood outside the closed doors. He had refused to remain for the conversation. This truth belongs to you, he had said. Madison did not rise. Why did you lie to me? Her mother sat across from her. Because, when you woke, you were terrified. You could not remember Gabriel. But you remembered the sound of gunfire. You remembered men pulling you from the car. Every time anyone mentioned the lighthouse, your heart raced until the nurses called a doctor. So you erased my husband. I thought he was the reason danger found you. Was he? Evelyn looked toward the library door. No. Your grandfather brought the danger home years before Gabriel entered your life. Gabriel was simply the only man powerful enough to stand between you and it. Madison looked at the ring. Did I love him? Her mother began to cry. You tried not to. That sounds like me. You said he frightened you because he looked at you as if nothing else in the room had weight. You said women had spent your whole life asking you to make them smaller, smoother, easier to admire. Gabriel never asked you to become less. He only asked you to stay alive. Madison covered her mouth. Evelyn reached for her hand. I was wrong. I was afraid of losing you. So I took away the truth you needed to choose your own life. Did Gabriel agree with you? No. He threatened to take the decision before a judge. Then you saw him through the hospital glass and suffered another panic attack. He left that night. He never forgave me. I do not think he ever forgave himself. Madison remembered the photographs. He stayed close. Every day. Why did you let me marry Julian? Her face collapsed with shame. Conrad said he knew about the sealed marriage. He threatened to expose Gabriel, the ledger, and the men who died. He said Julian would keep you safe if I helped convince you. I believed I could control the damage. You sold my choice to protect me from the consequences of choosing. Yes. Madison pulled her hand away. I love you. But I cannot forgive this today. Evelyn nodded through tears. You should not. A knock struck the door. Gabriel entered with a telephone in his hand. Conrad has Julian. He wants an exchange. Evelyn looked confused. His own son Julian stole the ledger before the accident and hid it somewhere inside the lighthouse. Conrad believes Madison remembers the location. He no longer needs Julian alive if he can force her to speak. Madison stood. Where does he want to meet the Vale shipyard at midnight? His expression told her the rest. There will be no exchange. No. You plan to attack? Yes. And Julian? Gabriel did not answer. Madison moved closer. He tried to kill me. I do not want to save him. But I will not let Conrad use my property to start a war that leaves dock workers and families in the middle. This war began before you were born. Then let it end with evidence. Not bodies. The evidence is missing. Madison looked toward the ring. The lighthouse engraving. A new memory surfaced. Her grandfather turning the inner lens during a summer storm. A hidden mark appearing only when the beam crossed the north wall. She ran from the library. Gabriel followed her to the lantern room. Madison placed the ring against a small circular opening beneath the lens platform. It fit perfectly. A panel opened in the floor. Inside was a waterproof metal case. The ledger rested within it, along with photographs, bank records, and a small recorder. Gabriel stared at the evidence. You hid it here. No. My grandfather did. I only moved the key. Gabriel lifted the recorder and pressed play. The voice of Conrad Vale filled the room. He described payments, dues, roots, names, and the death of Elias Cole. Then another voice spoke. Julian. I will handle Madison. After the courthouse. She will never remember Leonie again. Her knees weakened. The full memory returned. The civil ceremony. Gabriel placing the dark gold ring on her finger. The drive toward the lighthouse. The truck, driven by Julian, blocking the road. Julian dragging her from the damaged car, his hand closing around her throat as he demanded the ledger. Gabriel charging through fire and rain. Gabriel choosing her while Julian escaped. Then one more memory. Before the attack, in the courthouse stairwell. Madison had kissed Gabriel. Not because of the contract, because he had looked at her as if the whole dangerous world could wait until she finished speaking. She turned toward him. I remember. Gabriel did not move. All of it. Enough. His voice lowered. Do you remember why you married me? Madison stepped closer. I married you because you gave me a choice when every respectable man around me was trying to take one away. Something fierce and wounded moved across his face. That is not all. No. She lifted her hand and touched the scar along his jaw. I married you because I loved you, and I hated that I loved a man capable of terrible things. Gabriel closed his eyes beneath her fingers. When he opened them, the cold control was gone. I am still capable of them. I know. You should not forgive me for watching you. I do not. You should not trust me because a memory returned. I do not. His mouth tightened. Then, what are you saying? I am saying you do not get the old marriage back simply because I remember it. You will have to earn the woman I am now. Gabriel looked at her for a long moment. Then he bowed his head once. Name the price. Truth. Even when you think it will make me leave, that price may cost me everything. Madison met his gaze. Then perhaps it is finally honest. Chapter 6. Madison went to the Vale shipyard at midnight. Not as a prisoner. Not as bait. As the owner of the evidence, Conrad had spent years killing to possess. The Leone men entered through the eastern gate. Madison walked into the central warehouse, carrying the metal case. Gabriel remained somewhere in the fog. Conrad stood beneath a hanging light. Evelyn sat tied to a chair beside him. Madison stopped. Julian stood near the loading doors with bruises across his face. He looked less like a wealthy groom and more like the frightened son he had always been. Conrad smiled. The bride returns. Madison held the case tighter. Release my mother. Place the case on the floor. No. Conrad raised his weapon toward Evelyn. You were always difficult. Your grandfather admired that. It made killing him almost satisfying. Evelyn closed her eyes. Madison forced herself not to look toward the fogged windows. Gabriel was near. She could feel it. You do not want the case. Madison said. You want the lighthouse deed. I want both. The deed is already transferred. His smile faded. To whom? To the Cole Coastal Trust. It cannot be sold. Inherited by a corporation. Or used for private shipping. I signed the transfer before coming here. Julian stared at her. You destroyed everything. No. Madison said, I made sure none of you could own it. Conrad struck Evelyn across the face with the back of his hand. Madison stepped forward. Do that again, and the case goes into the water. Conrad pointed the weapon at her. You still think Leone will save you? Madison looked into the darkness above the warehouse. No. I think he will destroy you. Saving me is the part that frightens him. A shot broke the hanging light. Darkness swallowed the room. The Leone men moved through the loading doors. Weapons flashed in the fog. Madison dropped behind a steel crate and crawled toward Evelyn. Conrad fired toward the shadows. Julian grabbed her arm. Give me the case. She drove her elbow into his chest and pulled free. You ruined my life, he shouted. You planned a life that required me to have none. Julian lunged again. Gabriel appeared between them. He struck Julian once and sent him to the floor. Then he turned toward Madison, searching her face, her shoulders, her hands. Are you hurt? No. He touched her cheek for half a second. Permission asked and answered in the silence. Then Conrad stepped from behind the container and aimed at Madison. Gabriel turned. The gun fired. Gabriel struck her body and drove her behind the crate. He went still above her. Madison heard nothing but the sea. Gabriel. His eyes opened. The bullet had struck the protective vest beneath his shirt, but pain tightened every line of his face. Conrad ran toward the pier with the metal case. Gabriel tried to rise. Madison pressed him down. Stay. He looked offended by the concept. That man has tried to kill you twice, and you have saved me twice. Let someone else finish the war. Sirens grew beyond the gates. Conrad reached the pier and found federal agents surrounding the cargo ship. He turned back toward the warehouse. Julian stood in his path. For one moment. Father and son faced each other beneath the rotating harbor light. Conrad raised the weapon. Julian stepped aside. Conrad ran past him and disappeared into the fog. A deep horn sounded from the sea. The lighthouse beam cut through the darkness and swept across the harbor. It found Conrad at the end of the pier, exposed against the water. Agents closed around him. He fired once, then dropped his weapon when every red sight settled on his chest. The great Conrad Vale fell to his knees beneath the light of the property he had murdered to steal. Madison freed her mother and returned to Gabriel. He was standing now. Because Gabriel Leone apparently considered pain a suggestion. Blood marked his lower lip where the impact had driven his teeth against it. His suit was torn. His men waited for orders. Gabriel looked toward Julian. Julian did not run. He stared at Madison. I did love you. No. You loved the life my surrender could buy you. Federal agents placed Julian in restraints. Gabriel watched until he was gone. Then he turned to Madison. The cold mask returned. It frightened her more, now because she understood what it hid. What truth are you keeping? She asked. Gabriel reached inside his damaged jacket and removed a folded document. An annulment petition. Madison stared at it. I signed it before coming here, he said. Once you were safe, I planned to give you the freedom I should have given you 18 months ago. You did give me freedom. I chose the marriage. You chose a man you remembered. That man no longer exists for you. Gabriel looked toward the harbor, unable to face her. I can protect you without owning a place in your life. Madison took the document. This is what you are afraid of. I am not afraid. She tore the petition in half. Gabriel looked at her. Madison tore it again and let the pieces fall into a rain puddle. You are terrified. His voice became quiet. Yes. The admission seemed to cost him more than every wound. Of what? That you will remember loving me and still decide the cost is too high. Madison stepped close enough to feel his breath. Then listen carefully. I am not choosing the man from my missing memories. I am choosing the man who opened a locked door. The man who stood between me and a bullet. The man who sent evidence outside his own control because I asked him to. The man who finally told me the truth, even when it gave me a reason to leave. His hands remained at his sides. Madison took one and placed it against her waist. His fingers tightened carefully over the silk of her ruined wedding gown. "I am still angry with you," she said. "I know. I will argue with you. I know. You will not place guards outside my studio without telling me." His expression hardened. "We can discuss the number." Madison almost smiled. That was not agreement. It was the beginning of negotiation. She touched his face. "And this is the beginning of something else." Gabriel waited. For permission. Madison kissed him beneath the harbor light, while rain moved across the dark water, and sirens carried Conrad Vale into the life he had once believed belonged only to weaker men. Chapter 7. Gabriel lost 2 shipping contracts, 3 political allies, and an entire private route when Madison demanded that his organization leave the protected harbor. He complained exactly once. Madison reminded him that truth had a price. He never complained again where she could hear him. Her bridal studio reopened in the city under a new name, the Lighthouse Atelier. Madison designed gowns for women who had been told they were too large, too old, too scarred, too ordinary, or too difficult to dress beautifully. Every mirror carried the same small sentence along the lower edge. You do not have to become smaller to be chosen. On a cold evening in December, Madison stood inside the Lighthouse Chapel wearing a gown she had made for herself. Not the ivory dress from the Vale wedding. This gown was deep cream, soft at the shoulders, fitted without apology, and covered in tiny threads of gold that caught the moving beam above. There were no reporters, no shipping families, no locked doors. Gabriel waited near the window. He wore black, as he always did. The scar along his jaw remained. The world beyond the lighthouse still feared him. Men still lowered their voices when he entered a room. He had not become gentle. He had become truthful. That was harder. Madison walked toward him alone. When she reached him, Gabriel looked at the gown. "You made armor." Madison smiled. "I made a choice." Gabriel took her hand. His thumb touched the dark gold ring, now resting where it belonged. The judge asked whether Madison came freely. She looked at the man before her. "Yes." The judge asked Gabriel the same question. Gabriel did not look away from Madison. "There is nowhere else I would go." After the ceremony, the guests left for dinner in the keeper house. Madison remained in the lantern room while snow began to fall over the cliffs. Gabriel joined her at the glass. Below them, the lighthouse beam moved across the black water. Madison leaned against him. "Do you still have photographs of me hidden somewhere?" "Yes." "Gabriel, you asked for truth." "How many?" He considered the question. "Enough to require a locked room." She turned to stare at him. His expression remained perfectly serious. Then she saw the smallest movement at the corner of his mouth. Madison laughed and struck his chest with one hand. He caught her wrist, brought her fingers to his lips, and kissed them. The motion was restrained, almost formal. The feeling behind it was not. "I spent 18 months believing that loving you meant staying where you could not see me," Gabriel said. "I was wrong." Madison watched snow gather against the windows. "What does loving me mean now?" "It means standing where you can see everything, even the parts that may make you leave. And if I leave," his hand tightened around hers, "I will make sure the road is safe." She placed his hand over her heart. "Then, make sure the road home is safe too." His eyes changed. The feared man disappeared for one breath, leaving only the husband who had waited beside a hospital, outside a studio, and inside a lighthouse full of memories she could not reach. He bent his forehead to hers. Always, far below. Waves struck the rocks. The storm moved out to sea. The lighthouse beam crossed the harbor, touched the horizon, and returned. Madison had spent years sowing beautiful futures for women who never saw her clearly. She had believed love would arrive only after she became quieter, smaller, easier to display beside someone powerful. Gabriel had never wanted her reduced. He had wanted her alive, furious, intelligent, difficult, compassionate, and free enough to refuse him. That freedom was why her choice finally mattered. She rose onto her toes and kissed him while the light moved around them. When he first stopped her wedding, Gabriel had told the world that the bride had already chosen him. This time, no certificate spoke for her. No forgotten memory answered. Madison looked into the dark eyes of the man who frightened the world and had finally learned not to frighten love into staying. I choose you again. The lighthouse turned above them, bright against the winter sea.